JT Marting, taking over the Twitter world by storm. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you. Actually, I've been interacting with you for a little while on Twitter. I think my favorite thing about you is your thirst for knowledge, right? Like I see you asking the right questions, getting around the right people, networking. I guess what was the inception of you even starting this journey on Twitter?
Yeah, for sure. About a year ago was when I started getting started on Twitter in the early spring of 2023, and I was just jumping into commercial real estate, meeting a lot of people on LinkedIn, alumni, and just trying to learn as much as I could. And I asked one of my mentors, I was like, I'm really struggling to stay up to date on commercial real estate. What's happening with the market other than talking to people? Are there any good websites or articles that I could read? And he kind of laughed at me and he said, well, I get all my real estate news off of Twitter. And I thought he was joking with me for a little bit. So I downloaded Twitter. I really didn't have a personal account or anything previously. And so jumped into it and saw that there was a ton of good people to meet on there, just throwing absolute gems out on the internet for everyone to pick up. And thought, you know what, there's really weren't any other students or young people on there at the time. And I just was like, if I make a half decent profile and start tweeting every day, it was the worst thing that could happen. And so, maybe 7 or 8 months later, I've grown a bunch of followers and met a ton of good people and learned a bunch. And so it's kind of crazy that kind of started as a joke and it's flourished into a really good network and opportunity for me to learn and meet new people. So it's been phenomenal.
So I guess what are like three things that surprised you about Twitter that you didn't know in the beginning?
Yeah, for sure. That's a good question. Definitely the algorithm now when, I'm trying to like gain followers and stuff, it used to just be something simple where I was like just trying to put out content and see what happened. And now I really have amassed something, larger than myself and I want to build a good platform for people to ask good questions. But sometimes Twitter drives me crazy. I'll put a ton of effort into one post and it won't do anything, and then I'll put some dumb thought on the internet and it'll blow up, which is probably the funniest thing about Twitter for me. But other than that, it's been phenomenal how helpful people have been on there. I think some of these brokers spend way too much time on Twitter. They should be out
Yeah.
there making some money, which has been funny for me. I'll get a response back in like 10 seconds from some people, and I'm like, "Don't you have a job here to do?" That's probably the second funniest thing that I've noticed so far. But other than that, it's just been a really phenomenal community. There really is a big community sense. I got to go to a networking event in Orlando, Florida, a couple months ago. That was really just came from the good network on Twitter. Ken Ashley, who's a broker in Atlanta, Georgia, he started this thing called CREI, and it's
Mhm.
for commercial real estate people who are trying to become like commercial real estate influencers, which is really cool. And it really just sparked from his Twitter and his LinkedIn and going there and meeting some of the people that I've been going back and forth with online and getting to meet them in person and getting to, talk with you and some other people online now face to face has been really cool as well.
Yeah, and I really want to encourage the energy you're putting out there because it is super positive. Carrie Bob is a good friend of mine as well. She's been on this podcast, and it's interesting early on during the social media kind of craze, guys like Ciano and people like Carrie and Kyle and Sarah and Eddie Gonzalez. Like I can go on and on. These were guys that were doing it when nobody was paying attention, and it's interesting how the digital world translates into like real world opportunities. Look at Aviva, you look at other amazing people on the platform that, people think, well, they're just doing social media. Well, no, like you can really take these relationships and turn them into something tangible. So give me an example of something that maybe started off digital, but ended up really blowing your mind into real life.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess a couple different ways. Carrie Bob, I got to meet her at the conference, and she gave me a really phenomenal couple leasing tips. Even though I'm not super interested in leasing, but she taught me about one of her projects where she was working in Nashville, and she worked with the owners, and she got them to lower the rents and basically just give away the retail component for free in a
Mm.
mixed-use property, which in turn made the multifamily component worth way more. And just as a 20-year-old kid who's getting his foot in commercial real estate, that was really cool. And she connected with some people in Nashville as well, which was just a great contact. But when I went to the ICSC conference, which is like a retail real estate, commercial real estate conference, I got to meet up with a couple people that I knew off of Twitter. And I was just chatting with some of my buddies there, and someone came up to me, and I only probably had about 1,000 followers at the time, and they tapped me on the shoulder and they're like, "Are you JT Marting?" And I was like, "Hey, yeah, nice to meet you." And he's like, "I follow you on Twitter." And I go back and forth with him now over email and chat on the phone sometimes. But that was a really cool moment. Just seeing like, although I don't have a crazy big following or anything, like commercial real estate's a very niche industry and it's very tight. And a lot of people are, whether or not they have a profile on Twitter, they're scrolling through there and, sometimes a little student popping up asking a good question really just sparks their mind and they remember my face and my name, which has been really impactful for me, just trying to network people, and get my name out there as a young professional.
Yeah, and I think it should be really encouraging to anybody listening to this. If you're in any specific niche, it could be residential, commercial, investment, one of the niches within one of those tiers. We've gone through a time where vanity metrics like subscriber count and likes seem to be an indicator of success, when in reality, I think your account is one of the most interesting ones in terms of the future, right? Where the algorithms are really rewarding people that are starting impactful conversation and engagement. Give people an idea of like what the impact that you have on a monthly basis is versus a sub count. Because I think people will be very surprised to see how many people you actually reach.
Yeah, for sure. So I just hit 1,800 followers today, which was pretty
Woohoo,
cool.
congrats.
Although nothing crazy. Yeah, it was exciting. But for example, you're kind of talking about like starting good communication. My biggest tweet of all time, I'm pretty sure, was just a tweet where I said, "What new terms should people new to the industry learn?" And it was just people talking about like cap rates or NOI or just super basic stuff, and it got like 130 likes and maybe 80,000 impressions or something crazy like that from just an account that has just over 1,000 followers. And so I think Twitter does a really good job of just like kind of not really caring about your follower count or anything. If you put out good content, you're going to reach a ton of people. I've started putting out a couple of videos, which has been really nice, just kind of talking to the camera for 30 seconds and throwing it up there. That's been really well. But it's been pretty cool, like just asking simple questions and having people engage and comment and like it and just give their own thoughts has been really cool. Earlier, probably when I had less than 500 followers, my biggest post was just me kind of giving a little bit of a contrarian point of view of people from my age. I retweeted a tweet where someone basically said like AI and technology are not going to do anything to real estate because it's all about relationships. And I put a tweet. I didn't really mean to be controversial, but it turned out kind of controversial. I just retweeted it and I said, Gen Z doesn't care about relationships as much as like the previous generations. Whatever's best for the bottom line and whatever makes the most money is gonna change everyone's lives. And just kind of talked about how whether or not there's less face-to-face communications with AI and technology, if they can make you get more reach and meet more people and get your name out there more, people are going to use them to, just integrate into the industry. And people went crazy. They're like, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about," like all this. And it probably had 80 likes when I had no followers as well. And so just putting stuff out there that makes people think and makes them want to comment or add their thoughts or help out people has really done wonders for me.
Yeah, I think the intent has a lot to do with it, right? And I do think some of the people that maybe were triggered by that comment are the same ones that thought, "Oh, never going to have a Facebook, I'm never going to have an Instagram, I'm never going to have a TikTok." And they're always lagging behind the people that are trend setting, and attention's always moving, right? So, the rush that TikTok experienced, I think Twitter and commercial real estate on Twitter has been experiencing that for the last 8 to 9 months, in a very big way. But you notice these peaks, like there was that recent controversy on CREI where there was this guy that got exposed for having a fake account. I'm sure you get a lot of fake DMs and interactions with people. How do you gauge those that are there for real connection and real information sharing versus the trolls and the other side of Twitter?
Yeah, for sure. So just being a student and getting into the industry yet not really having a full-time job, it's definitely a very fine line to walk because I know, I've interacted with countless people who start their accounts, who work at, big investment managers or big firms, and a couple months later they don't post, and I'll be like, "What happened?" And they'll be like, "Oh, my work doesn't really want me to post and all this." And so just realizing and having the awareness that what I put on the internet stays on the internet forever has definitely been really impactful, especially when I'm trying to have a professional account. Um, and so just realizing when there's like, trolls or whoever just, not engaging and just not lighting them up because that's what they want. They're all just anonymous accounts who want to spark some conversation and make you mad. But from a DM standpoint, it's been really cool. I've gotten LinkedIn DMs or Twitter DMs from people who are students as well in my shoes, and they'll be like, "Hey, like, how do you do this?" or "How should I do this?" And that's probably been the most fulfilling part is being able to take, the hours I put in talking to people on the phone and learning and reading and condensing that, maybe hundreds of hours of spent into a quick text message and being able to help out a student who's in the same shoes as me or in the same shoes as me from 6 months ago and be like, hey, like, go check out this course or go talk to this person because they'll change the way you think has been really impactful from like a a collaboration standpoint.
I think those are great tips. Don't feed the trolls. And you said it earlier. There's a lot of people that have full-time jobs that make a lot of money that seem to spend a lot of time on these platforms. I guess putting guardrails around your time on platforms is probably important. I time block it. It's the only way that I could manage it in my current schedule and also not get sucked into the doom scroll. How do you manage all the influx of posting and replies and whatnot?
Yeah, so last summer when I was working a full-time internship, although I wasn't, in my career or anything, I was working a little bit more than I was used to, and so I used to go on Sunday and spend like an hour, hour and a half, making all my tweets for the week. Back when I really just did a lot more like just generic questions and put them out there, and so I would just go through and you could schedule tweets on the Twitter on the laptop version, and so I'd schedule them out for like 7 a.m. Monday through Friday, just so I had something down to make sure I tweet once a day. Like that's my goal is just one tweet every single day. It was really cool at the CREI conference getting to hear from a couple of the bigger accounts and seeing how much they spend on Twitter or LinkedIn. Bob Knackle spends like a hour or two every Sunday writing out his content. I think Aviva spent the least amount of time, even though she has the biggest following. She only spent like
For
30
sure.
minutes a day, and you can tell in her content. It's really cool. It's like relatable, just kind of raw
It's
content.
real. Yeah, it's super
Yeah,
raw.
yeah, and I think that's really what's done her well, and some other people like Coy just really enjoy just kind of going back and forth on Twitter. He's on there a ton, but he just likes collaborating and communicating with people. It's a fun hobby, and so I think it's important to realize, like, what your goals are with Twitter if you're trying to gain a platform or gain credibility in your market or just meet people, and then kind of back into it from there, and so now I probably spend a little bit more time trying to write some content. Like I got to go to a ton of conferences this semester and learn a ton. And so I've been trying to put out a LinkedIn article every week, kind of digesting some stuff I've learned because while I'm no professional, I've been able to talk to some of the top professionals. And so being able to share that with students or professionals, or whoever wants to check it out, has been probably my main focus point right now. But it just kind of depends like what cycle you're in and how you want to block up your time.
Yeah. Do you follow Dan Coe at all on Twitter?
No, I don't.
Check out his account. I'll send it to you. So he's got an account, and his whole thing's the art of focus, right? And a weekly
Okay.
writing routine where you basically take an idea, do research on it throughout the week, and then you have a writing about that idea at the end of the week. That's your own angle and flavor, right? And I think you're kind of doing it organically, but he has some interesting stuff around structure that I think you get a lot from. I guess the question that I would have for you is, where is this all heading for you? Like, you obviously you're done your internship, you're working on deals. Like, where are you at right now in your commercial real estate career?
Yeah, for sure. So kind of like have my toes dipped in a couple different places right now. So I'm gonna graduate probably a year from now, December 2024-ish. In the spring, I'm going to Dallas to intern with Dominium, who's one of the largest affordable housing developers in the country,
Cool.
just to kind of get more reps, learn about development from an institutional team. And then in the summer, I'm gonna be in Atlanta interning with JLL, trying to learn about debt brokerage. I think that debt brokerage specifically from the platform I have, I've always, I'm in a real estate program right now, and the most competitive jobs are to go work in private equity or investment management and wherever that's all flashy. But I've kind of realized that I think that I have a different platform and I'm in a different situation, trying to have another year here to get my name out there more and meet more people. And while it probably wasn't at the top of my list 6 months ago or a year ago, I really think that with the platform I have, not giving brokerage a try would be a mistake. And so I think debt brokerage is interesting because you have a national platform. I've talked to some of the bigger debt brokers on Twitter and people in the space, and it's a good place to start your career in where you get to touch different asset types, touch different regions while also kind of having that sales aspect and being able to get your name out there. And I just want to be in a career path where like I'm in the driver's seat and where like how much effort I put into it is what I get out of it. And I think that that lines up with where I'm at now. I'm working with a group who does capital markets brokerage for multifamily development financing. So they work with like debt funds and private credit space, helping developers get high leverage financing. And they've been doing it for, a couple years now. It's a group of young guys who broke off from a big shop and are absolutely killing it. And now the market's pivoted to their space. And so it's been cool to be in that private credit world and then tied in with debt brokerage as it's become probably one of the hottest topics in commercial real estate. So just doing everything I can to like learn and network while also kind of getting by in school has been what I've been up to, I guess.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. And who are some of your favorite follows for CMBS or debt brokerage on Twitter?
Yeah, for sure. So I kind of blanked on his name, but he just it's like, oh, Brandon Roth. Brandon Roth
Okay. Yep.
is a newer guy on Twitter. You've probably seen him, but he started posting probably 2 months ago, and he's absolutely blown up since then, just strictly through, like, adding so much value. He
Mhm.
worked at JLL, which is probably the biggest capital markets brokerage group in the country for 20 years or so as an executive, and he just started out doing his own group, and he started on Twitter as an entrepreneur, and he just, like, puts out the best articles and talks about the groups he's working with, and just adds so much content and so much value to the community, and he's gotten to, like, 6,000 followers in a month and a half or so, and that's probably been my favorite follow recently.
Yeah, that's impressive. So going back a step, and you're just talking about what the next year looks like. Sounds like you have a super tactical plan, but you're still in school, correct?
Yeah, I'm still in school.
So how do you balance that with the work side of things, and what does your day to day look like?
Yeah, I've just learned that just, like, kinda mapping out your day and being very structured about what you do just allows you to fit in as much as possible, and so what I do is so Tuesdays and Thursdays, I stacked up all my classes, so I'm just in class, like, all Tuesday, all Thursday, maybe taking some quick phone calls in between classes, just kinda catching up with people, and then while I'm in class, like, obviously paying attention, but doing some other stuff as well, like doing research for articles that I wanna write or going back and forth on Twitter, just nothing crazy, but still paying attention. And then Monday, Wednesday, Friday is kinda when I'm all in on, like, working, networking, talking to people like you, and just trying to, like, expand my professionalism in my career. I've learned that it's a lot easier to get your foot in the door when you're a student, and so I'm just trying to have as many touch points with as many different people as possible, so I can watch those relationships flourish in the next 4 to 5 years rather than just, like, meeting 5 or 10 people and building, like, really good relationships with them. I think it's important to, like, cash in as wide as possible because I'm still a student. I don't know exactly what I wanna do, and I don't know exactly who's gonna be a good resource when I'm older. And so just trying to meet as many people as possible and follow up with them has been really helpful for me, and that's probably the bulk of what I do, like, Monday, Wednesday, and then Friday afternoons, I kinda just, like, tap out and go hang out with my friends.
It's good. You have a balance. And weekends, you're chilling out and you're resetting.
Just yeah, just all chilling. I mean, go to Florida State. For number 5 in the country right now for football, undefeated,
There
so
you
it's been
go.
a phenomenal year to be a Seminole.
That's awesome. What were you like as a kid? I guess where did you grow up, and like where does this fire come from?
Yeah, so I was born in Atlanta, Georgia, lived there for just about a year. My parents wanted to move closer to family, and we moved down to South Florida in the West Palm area. Spent a couple years there. My dad has a contractor background, and he was flipping houses with my grandpa, and 2008 hit, and it was the worst place to be in, so he
Mhm.
took a job with Progressive Insurance. We moved to Tampa. He was working in their, like, facilities and operations team, just kind of in project management. So we were in West Palm for probably 5 years, Tampa for 5 years, and then moved up to Cleveland, Ohio, which is a little change in speed, a lot colder up there.
Mhm.
And so moved down there a couple times. So I moved 7 times before I turned 18, which was definitely impactful when I was young, not a military kid or anything, just kinda randomly moving around for houses and jobs, and I think that taught me, along with I played soccer my whole life, like, it taught me that hard like, going into hard times and just, like, struggling really does make you come out a better man on the other side. um, just like change and being able to be adaptable goes a long way in your career and in your life in general. And so what I've learned is just like try new things, like and just listen to people. I've had so much success just listening to people. When people give you advice, just do it. And so many people who are my age get so much phenomenal advice, whether to post on Twitter or to network or to, do all this whatever, and nobody does it. And that's probably been the craziest thing for me to realize coming from a small town in Ohio. Now it's a big state school. Nobody listens and nobody, like, shapes up until it's too late, and so just having the ability to get ahead of the curve has really done wonders for me.
Yeah, I think there's a big misconception about generations and younger generations not wanting to work hard. Just from a cultural perspective, I think I've seen young, medium, and old people that are all lazy, and I've seen young, medium, and old people that are all very hungry and willing to go find opportunities. Did you always want to get into commercial real estate, or was that a different career path from the one you thought you were going to chase?
Yeah, so when I was in high school, I kinda just played around with a ton of different things. I day traded penny stocks for a couple months and lost a bunch of money. I really thought I was gonna be into finance for some reason because I just wanted to make money the easiest way possible. I was just a kid and I thought I was gonna be rich one day. And so I did that and realized that that was just an absolute joke. I paid for a course and fell for everything. Like a little Instagram ad popped up and it's like, make $100 a day or whatever. And I was like, sign me up. Did that for a little bit. And just like tried to consume a bunch of informational content. I listened to a bunch of people who were talking about day trading and finance and thought it was something interesting. I thought that it was just interesting how you could make money with other people's money, and I stumbled into the bigger pockets world about real estate, and I thought that real estate was way cooler because a stock is worth what the stock says it's worth, but real estate is worth what you make of it, and two people can look at the same property and think it's two different numbers, and I thought there was opportunity and, like, the illiquidity of real estate, and so I kinda dove it all into the bigger pockets thing, when I was graduating high school, my original plan was to not go to college, to go live with my grandparents in South Florida and find a realtor, like a top producer in the area, and just like go all in, like just work as hard as I can, not really care about the money, and just like get myself into the right opportunity. For some reason, I've always just understood that learning is like the most important thing you can do. And so that was my plan for a little bit. And then I realized that there's a lot of stability that comes with going to college. I had to pay for my school on my own, and I got a good scholarship to go to Florida State. And so I was like, you know, let's be patient. If I want to do that, I can prepare myself for that while I'm in school. It's nice to be a student and it's easy to network. And so let's go to school and have like, 3 years or so to just take a breath and plan out my future. And so I came to school, and Florida State happened to have a top 5 real estate program in the country. And I learned about commercial real estate, and I just thought it was like residential real estate, but on steroids. And so I was like, all right, this is it. Like, I was already into real estate, but this is just so much better. I like how there's the financial concepts and there's a high level like financial knowledge that takes place and is needed to be successful. But then there's also the sales aspect and being able to grind and push yourself as well, just like there is in residential real estate. And I was just kind of sold from there. And ever since then, I really haven't looked back, considered anything else. It's just been finding exactly what niche to specialize in commercial real estate to lead me to the most success because I've learned that entrepreneurship is the way to do it, like getting out there on your own, whether that's, being a broker, I feel like it's still pretty entrepreneurial or starting your own investment shop. And so figuring out what I can learn and what opportunities I can take advantage of while I'm in college to set myself up for, 10 years down the line. Just being able to highlight delayed gratification has done wonders.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic mindset to have in this business too. And you also don't seem like somebody that would be tied to a specific path if all of a sudden new data were to show you that, there was opportunity in a different zone. Am I correct in that assumption?
Yeah, yeah, I'm always, like, paying attention and looking for the next best opportunity, and how to pivot and, like, one up myself and grow and just, like, keep going. I think that the top people and the top learners in any industry are people who are always learning, like, I think it's Bill Gates, goes to the mountains for, like, 2 weeks every year and reads, like, 100 books or something crazy like that, like, or even just in commercial real estate, Bob Knackel, one of the
Yep.
greatest investment sales brokers of all times, like, he put a picture out the other day on Twitter where he has, like in his gym, he has a bike, one of those exercise bikes, and he has a sawhorse table and a computer, so he can respond to emails while working out because it's efficient, and
Yeah.
he's always, like, learning and adapting as, you see him being super active on real estate Twitter and LinkedIn and just always being able to pivot, like, never allows people to catch up. I'm putting out an article on LinkedIn in the next week or 2 about AI and technology in commercial real estate, and I think that one thing that's really interesting in any aspect of sales is that there's like top producers, but then someone always jumps them typically, or there's always an opportunity and a window for new people to get in because there's a low barrier to entry and whether that's residential brokerage or commercial brokerage or sales in general. But when you have the ability to like adapt and always be on top of the new trends, like you really do like keep setting yourself farther and farther above and not allowing people to overtake you as the top dog, like Bob Knackel, for example, or other people. So it's pretty cool to think about that and just understand like intuitively that if you're always adapting and always growing, like you're gonna be at the top eventually.
Yeah, and Bob is like such an excitable guy, like the love of the game. You just see it in his smile and his map room and how he kind of shows up. I think that's the key is he's not chasing the fame, he's just doing the work. And I think the success comes when you're focusing on the work. Now, the other side of that coin, what have been some of the biggest challenges you've faced in this journey?
Yeah, for sure. One thing to kind of going back with the Bob Knackel, not to harp on it too much, but I get to talk to him in person once, and I talked to him, and he's like, "When I was your age, I used to work out every day so that all the girls would love me and chase after me." And he's like, "Now I work out every day so I can be a broker for longer." And I just thought that was like probably one of the coolest things I've ever heard.
Good for him.
Yeah, but going back to the challenges part, just being a student, it's definitely been interesting trying to put content out there and the whole idea, Ryan Serhant talked about it a lot,
Mhm.
if like people don't want to put their face out there because they're afraid of failure and they're afraid of being judged. But in reality, everyone has that fear. Like I have that fear too. I'm a student, and we're gonna put this out there, and maybe someone I know is gonna watch it and think it's weird or think I said something dumb or bad. But in reality, you just have to get over that and just realize like no one cares. Like everyone's just living their own life and just do your own thing and just like keep pushing through that. The idea of people who are gonna judge you or you're gonna get embarrassed doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. That's definitely been a big challenge. Another big challenge has been just not growing up with like a rich commercial real estate dad or whatever. There's a ton of people in the industry who get into it just because their dad did it or their uncle did it or they have a good relationship and a network of their own. And I've had to build up my own network from zero. But I think that's really just what's taught me and got me to where I am is just like the hustle and being able to start from nothing and build it out and just like take 1% better every single day. Like one step in front of the other at a time has been really phenomenal for me too.
You're naming people with the exact same trait, right? Like Bob and Ryan's been on this podcast. He's a close friend of ours as well too. And maybe I'll get you to interview him one day on your podcast one day. But I think what you described is the same pattern that I've seen in a lot of successful people, and that not worrying about the opinions of other people and just putting in the work and seeing the results of it regardless of what may be happening today, right? Because you get that compound interest of doing something for long enough that may not seem like you're getting anywhere and feels like you're failing first 90% of the time until you get that glimmer of like leveling up to that next place and you're like, oh, what's next? What's next? Right. I think it's an interesting perspective to have being so young. What were your parents like when they raised you? Like, were they entrepreneurs? Like,
Yeah.
what was their background?
No, pretty simple people, just like a really Christian family who's big on like a tight-knit family. They've been the greatest parents I could ask for. Like they would throw any of their dreams or aspirations to the side to I have an older brother to help me or my older brother do whatever we want. Like
Mm.
when I was in Ohio, I had to drive an hour to soccer practice 5 days a week, and my dad would take off work early if he needed to, or do whatever was needed to drive me an hour to soccer and sit there for an hour and a half and drive me an hour back. And didn't really realize at the time how much he was doing. He was sacrificing 3 or 4 hours every single day just to make me happy and make me want to achieve my goals. And my mom's just been like super genuine, just a very like, comforting mom who takes care of her whole family and is just like loving. So they've just poured like all the love and admiration they can into me and never judged me for anything I've done. Just been my biggest supporters, and that's been really important to me moving all across the country and not really having like stable friends my whole life or anyone to stay in touch with. Like my parents, they don't really know what I'm doing, but they're just like, we're here for you and we'll always support you no matter what you need. And that's been phenomenal and really important to have for me my whole life.
And from all the learning experiences that you've had, right? Jumping around and looking at different opportunities, I guess what's something that you maybe have a different opinion on than the majority of people in the industry? I'll give you mine to give you a second to think about
Okay.
this. And it would be that commercial brokerage is unemotional and residential brokerage is completely emotional. False. I started in commercial and I own a brokerage that does both. And I can tell you lots of commercial people I have met that get very emotional when they're involved in heavy heated negotiations. Do you agree with that point? And then what's something that maybe you have a different viewpoint on in the industry?
Yeah, that's a good question. I definitely agree with what you're saying. I think that that's just like a easy little like how people just paint broad thoughts with a paintbrush, or there's some saying about how they just like generalize everything. And I think it's just really just generalizing it because when there's any sort of sales or people involved, like it's gonna be like relationship driven and it's gonna be like emotionally driven because at the end of the day, like the broker wants to make his commission or they want to keep the relationship. And so I totally agree. I think it's just a dumb thing to say how it's not emotional. I think that maybe it's more emotional for residential, but it's definitely emotional in the commercial world as well, in my opinion. A thought that I don't agree with. That's a good question. I think what's been interesting for me is like definitely just like kind of seeing how the industry changes. Like I don't really know if I have a exact thought to go along with it, but I think like failure is really important. I think it's important to just like always be adapting to the industry. I think that artificial intelligence is gonna have a really big impact on the industry. I think that a lot of people agree with that though. They just don't know how much. But I really do believe that the industry is in for a big shakeup. Like we're at a really big inflection point right now, and there's a lot going on just in every piece of commercial real estate. And so I think it's gonna be interesting to see what shakes out. But I don't really know if I have a crazy hot take yet in commercial real estate.
Well, there's your hot take is things are going to change. I think a lot of people think
Yeah.
commercial real estate is always going to stay steady. I actually think that we're going to see some massive changes generationally from the brokerage world. I mean, we're a boutique brokerage in little old London, Ontario, Canada, and we're taking national mandates, right, from people that we have no business competing with. And I think that's a pretty cool space to be in, especially for somebody like yourself to create your own platform that you can go to any brokerage and affect change through your own ecosystem, which I clearly see you building today.
Yeah. I kinda add on that too, like, definitely a take to go along with that is I 100% agree with that. The whole idea of these big brokerage shops are really, like, starting to die and are a little bit of a dying breed because they used to have all these like, a big brokerage shop, you used to go there and make your way up to being a top broker, and you'd have a big team around you who would answer your phones and make your models and your decks and be able to advertise for you and get your name out there. But in reality, like, nowadays with technology and a lot of the business is a lot more efficient, and so you don't need as big of a team, and then tying in with that, like, you don't really need the big brokerage name anymore to advertise, you can do it all on your own, like, Aviva, for example, like another person who we talked about, like,
I don't know who
you can
she
get
works for. I know her super well. She's been on this podcast too. No idea who she works
yeah,
for,
there
to be
you
honest
go.
with you.
Like, she has 1,000,000 followers on TikTok, she can reach whoever she wants. Sure, like, maybe it's not the biggest. Maybe if you want, you should go to a big shop and a big brokerage if you wanna do, million square foot industrial deals or something super big right now, and I think there's times changing that as well, but for, like, 80% of the business, there's no reason to go to a big shop. I think it's a great place to, like, learn and cut your teeth, but you're seeing right now, like, more and more people are going out on their own because they're paying, 50% of their deal to a big shop who's not really doing a ton for them, and so it's
Mhm.
gonna be interesting to see, like, if these big firms kinda get more resources or if they just start to die out.
Yeah, I think it'll be like just seeing the franchise model in res. I think the ones that will succeed are the ones that have good leadership, right? Because you can have a locally run global brand that is killing it and has great leadership and has a small, concise team. Like it feels like a boutique, but they have a logo of big national. And the reverse is true. You can also have a terrible leader with a big logo that the logo doesn't really mean anything. It's what do people relate to that operation? And I think when I think of, because we actually own the brokerage, when I think of working with people like you or Jamie on my team or the commercial team that we have, I think of like how we are collaborating more than you work for me and I have staff underneath me. Like it is a very different landscape that I think we're going into. And you touched on another point, like when we hit send on the platforms that we've built, we want to make sure that our global platform has more reach, a targeted reach than almost anybody out there. And I don't think people really understand that that's where things are going. Per capita, we measure our reach on individual listing marketing and we get 5 to 10 times the views, impressions, and leads as our current MLS system per capita, right? So like they
That's
may get
crazy.
2300. It's wild, right? But this is I think people maybe think I'm making it up when I'm saying stuff like that, but people like you get it because as you build your platform, you're going to have that niche audience and then you can retarget against that audience in many different ways if you build email lists. And I'm going down a wormhole here, but I appreciate that, well, how old are you right now?
20.
Yeah, the fact that you have this mindset at 20 years old, I mean, that makes me very, very encouraged for our future generations.
Yeah, I definitely would like to say, like, too, about the younger generations, like, there's a ton of absolute killers who are my age who are grinding maybe as hard as I am or even harder, in their own pieces of commercial real estate. I think there's a phenomenal future coming up, at least, with people who are my age or a couple years around me. Maybe not as much in the social media and, like, that space, but the people who are really smart and who are gonna make big strides in the industry, and I think that people don't often respect the younger generations, but there's a lot of people who are gonna make some big strides, and so it's definitely exciting to see, like, kind of people I'm coming up with.
Yeah, trust me, I've seen people go through business and the best revenge is just showing the results. So you keep hammering away, brother. I'll be there to support you online. I just really wanted to bring you on the show to expose my audience to you, everybody that's watching this. There's real estate agents, entrepreneurs, people that understand, business, entrepreneurship, and digital media. Please go follow JT. Give him a shout out on Twitter as well. If you're looking for an effective way to go and use Twitter, literally just click on his profile, scroll through his tweets. He adds a ton of value to the commercial real estate industry. Take that inspiration, do it in your own life. JT, I'm going to be pumped to see you, I'm sure, in person at CREI or one of these events in the future. Last but not least, what is something that you want to leave as a message? If you had a billboard at the top of Prime Nation for the whole world to see, what message would you like to leave the audience with today?
Yeah, I think like embracing failure is really important. Like chase failure. If I just had a quote like chase failure, I think it's really important because when you fail, you always come back better. You always learn. So just anything you do in your life, chase failure.
Absolutely love that. We'll see you on the next one, brother, and keep growing. Super, super proud to watch you do what you do.
Sounds good. I appreciate it. Thank you.
See you, brother.